Hey, and welcome to another Frontend Engineering Explained. This one's a little different, as you might be able to tell from what's on the screen in front of me. So, when I started this, I don't know, series project, not sure what to call it, let's call it a project, Frontend Engineering Explained, I always intended to cover more than just the technical side because a career as a developer is about more than just code or just product requirement documentation or technical documentation or things like that. There's a whole array of other things that's very, very important to having a healthy, balanced, and successful career as a developer. And so I wanted to touch on these things too. Some call it the softer skills, some call it other words. Whatever you call it doesn't matter. It's just that there is another side that's also important. And what I want to touch on in this video is this idea that some days you just will not feel like doing the thing that you need to do. Sometimes you even want to do, but for some reason, when you open your code editor, your brain is just like, nope. And you're like, but I have to, or I want to, but just the neurons just aren't firing. And so in those cases, it might be for a variety of reasons, right? You might just be feeling frustrated. You might be feeling overwhelmed. You might be tired. In those cases, if at all possible, rest. Don't force yourself to do stuff, but we have to be realistic also. And sometimes this is some things you need to do, and you might be tired, but maybe you can just do a little bit. Sometimes we just missing some dopamine. It might be because of neurodiversity that you're having a day where you're particularly anxious or where your depression is kind of just feeling really, really dark. Again, in these situations, the ideal is to step away and allow yourself that distance from work and just allow yourself to rest. But sometimes it might not actually be that you're really that anxious or that you're really that depressed or down. It's more the situation that's causing it. And what you kind of need is just something to just kind of push you over the hump, so to speak. And then when you can just get started, then often things start to flow and you start getting into it. And before you know it, you're actually got out of that dark hole and you're into it and you can make progress. Maybe when the dopamine starts hitting a little bit and that kind of stuff. But one of the questions one often asks yourself in that situation is like, where do I start? And then where do I start often leads you back into this loop of frustration and overwhelm and all this kind of stuff and procrastination. So in these situations, something that I've done, and I did this today again, is I think about the problem or the task that I need to do and I break it down. There's value in this pretty much always, but especially in these situations, it's really, really helpful. It's helped me much more times than it's not. It's very rare that doing this doesn't help me. Now, there's many ways you can approach this, and you will need to find what works for you. You can use some kind of task tool. You can use pen and paper. You can use Excalibur, like what I'll show now in a second, which is the application I have open in front of me here in the browser. One thing to be careful is to choose something that is stimulating enough, but not to the point where it itself can become a distraction, right? And here you will have to experiment and understand and know yourself well enough to know where that balance is. For me, I have found that this kind of works really well. This is kind of a mix between pen and paper and something digital. I can make it a little bit more interesting by using color and shapes and stuff like that. But there's not enough here to completely have me go down a completely different rabbit hole. So let's have a look at what I did. So I have this thing that I need to do. And basically the problem is I need to do some stuff when the page loads. and I need to write this function, and this other function needs to do very specific things. And so what I've done here is I've kind of broken down the problem into these individual little steps that I can do. And now I don't have to ask myself anymore, where do I start or what's next? I literally start from the top and I work my way down. And once I hit something like maybe over here, I'll pivot over here and I'll move down. Maybe I'll work through here and then work through there. It depends on what the natural flow is, but I don't have to ask myself. More often than not, when I get roughly to number 4, I don't have to self-motivate anymore. The fact that I'm making progress is giving me that motivation that I need. What I like to do as well is add some little notes for myself. So for example, the very first thing is ensure any previous session information is cleared. And then I just set your note, reloading the page or navigating away will clear all timers. Remaining cleanup is session storage. And then I have like the next step is to get the secured API key, initialize the stuff, store the session start time and session storage. You can see these are very small tasks. A lot of them might take you 5 minutes, but as soon as I'm done, I get to make this little thing green, and maybe I need to get to make the text green, and that triggers a little something in your brain. You're like, ooh, green. I did a thing. I finished something. And when you do the next one, it builds up, and those dopamine things start firing, and you start building up momentum, right? So what I also sometimes do is I will expand a little bit more. So like add event listener for visibility change. And then I'll make a little note. This allows me to check whether the session has or is about to expire should the user have switched tabs. When the tab is visible again, call check session timeout. And then here I've copied a link for myself to the documentation on MDN. So I don't have to go search for it. I can just copy it, and that avoids distractions. Also some notes here that I made for myself. To be safe, take the opportunity to clear all timers at this point in time. So basically this is what I do, right? So I create these little, so I take this bigger task and I break it down into individual steps that follows a natural progression, one thing building on the other one, try to keep them as small as possible. And then I start from the top and I work my way down. And like I said, more often than not, by the time I hit the 4th, maybe 5th item in this list, depending on how small I've broken them down, I'm in the flow, I'm enjoying it. I've broken through the wall. I've gotten over the hump, whatever you want to call it. And I can basically just go. And now the thing that I'm chasing, if you want to call it that, is finishing the task and being able to open that pull request or merge request. So I will make more videos about this kind of thing. I'm curious, what do you do when you hit this wall and when you can't get started, when you want to, but for some reason, like I said, your brain's just like, nope. What do you do in those situations? If you find other techniques that helps you, please share them in the comments. If you found this useful, helpful, please let me know. Also, you can do that by giving this a thumbs up or leaving a comment. All of these are appreciated. If you enjoy this and you want to be sure that you don't miss future videos on these kinds of topics or on the more technical side, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, some TypeScript, please hit that subscribe button. And until the next one, find what works for you, stick to it, and just keep doing stuff that makes you excited about being alive and being awake and doing meaningful things. And love to hear from you in the comments, and I'll see you on the web, and have fun. Peace.